most part, I just go by M. It's a little bit more casual. So I designed this dress that I call the Fabric Mosaic, and that's also the title of my workshop. So my personal, let me back up a little bit. I am a junior in the fashion design program, and I'm also receiving a minor in metalsmithing and jewelry making. It's really awesome if you've never tried it. It's really hard. It's awesome. So my personal journey with sustainability started probably a few years ago, just sort of Googling, YouTubing, searching ways that I can personally be more sustainable in my own life. I know we're all kind of trying that, but it gets confusing because it's like, what do I swap out? And then there's always pros and there's always cons. And then one of the things I started to realize really early on is that as a fashion student, we end up with a ton of fabric scraps, which ends up contributing to the overall waste of textiles in the landfill. So when we were doing this summer sustainability research, I kind of wanted to find a way to combat that at like my level, which is how I've been researching sustainability from the beginning. You know, what can I do personally? Since I'm still just a little college student and I don't have that power to impact government, you know, every single day, but I can make my changes personally. So basically what I did is I took my own fabric scraps and I applied a fabric adhesive to the back, and I cut them up to make a mosaic that can be applied to essentially anything. What we're going to be doing today is actually making a sort of like home decor piece, and I'll be showing that in my demo. But like you can apply it to a dress. My favorite way to use it is actually if I have a bag or a garment that I get a stain on, because I love to spill coffee on things. You can use this method to cover that stain, and then you have your own personal mosaic that you can wear around with you anywhere. So I think that's everything.
All right, thank you very much.
If you want to, or you can grab one of these whenever you want here. That's okay. So basically, you want to start with any piece of fabric. Like I said earlier, you could use it to upcycle something you already own, like a tote bag, a t-shirt. Pretty much any fabric works because of the type of adhesive we're going to be using. So on that note, you can use fabric glue or anything like that, but my favorite is called, it's a double-sided fusible adhesive. The word fusible basically just means iron on. So think like Girl Scout patches, you know, anything fun like that. And then there's two brands I like to recommend. This one's called Heat and Bond. There's also Wonder Under. And then when it comes to Heat and Bond, you have Ultra Hold and then you have Light. Personally, I like to use Ultra Hold because, you know, it stays on better. But if you want to top stitch it later, if you are into sewing, if you want to add some stitching on it just for extra security, if you're going to be wearing it all the time, you know, if you are like me and you like to take off your clothes and just crumple them up on the floor, you might want to top stitch it. So you would want to use the light one. But like I said, I personally prefer the Ultra Hold.
And then you also have the tape, right?
Yes, and then this comes in a little bit later, but this is seam tape. I use this all the time, don't tell Professor here. It's a really great replacement for if one of them like comes up just a little bit and you just need like a teeny tiny fix, you can cut off like a little piece of seam tape. And this is just another double-sided adhesive for fabric. So it just irons right on. So basically, this is just a scrap of fabric. So as you can see, it's like a random shape. This came off of actually, well, I don't remember. It's a pattern, something that I made. And essentially what I do is I kind of just cut into it. Oh, actually, sorry. The first thing that I do is I'll take the Heat and Bond, so you can see that it is kind of shiny, kind of sticky on one side, and then it's paper on the other side. So the paper will go down onto the fabric, and you'll iron it on, and then it'll be like papery on the back of the fabric like this is, and then fabric on one side. So you can trace shapes if you want to, if you want a specific shape. I don't like to do that because I like the randomness, like a natural mosaic, how they just kind of hammer tiles and the tiles break naturally. I kind of like to mimic that with my fabric mosaic. So I will literally just like cut a rectangle out of this.
I'm using tiny scissors just for fun, I guess. I like small scissors. And then my favorite are triangles. I think they're the most versatile. You can make them look like round shapes, you can make them look like squares, you can make them look like anything. And so I will just kind of cut into it until you have as many shapes as you need. So my original design for the dress, it's actually multiple women like dancing through a field of flowers in these like pretty dresses. And the reason for that is because we were in a sustainability course, and that's sort of the whole message behind the dress, right? Is the idea that if we were in a perfect world, this is what we could look like every day, is we're all just frolicking through beautiful green flowers and fields rather than sort of all working and living in an unsustainable planet, right? So I think that flowers and natural things are like bugs and fruit and things like that are the easiest to do and sort of the most fun because flowers can look like anything. So I basically will just take the shapes that I cut out, like I said, triangles, squares, circles, whatever it is, and just lay them out, sort of arrange them however you want. And the most fun part about this is that it always comes out perfect, okay? Because this is not supposed to be something like, it's not supposed to mimic realism, it's supposed to mimic a mosaic, which if you've ever seen a mosaic in real life, we had a huge one at my elementary school, which I always was like obsessed with because I was a little kid and it was like the best piece of art I've ever seen. They don't necessarily mimic realism. It's almost surrealism in the way that it's sort of not necessarily natural. So yeah, to me this looks like a flower. And then once you put it in a scene, like on the dress, it becomes, oh, that looks like flowers. Oh, it looks like women. And then that, it is what you want it to be, if that makes sense. So then you just peel off the backing, and then you'll just stick it down with your iron. And I have a whole binder of pieces of fabric you can cut, or also pre-cut pieces of fabric. And don't feel bad taking from me because that's the whole point of why I created this. I have too much fabric. And I see a couple of fashion design majors. I know that you have too many scraps of fabric as well. So then you'll just keep going until yours is finished. And then at the end, we have these little embroidery hoops that you can put them into. And then you'll just want to trim off the excess to where it's basically just the length of it, like as long as the hoop is on the back. And then we'll put a little bit of fabric glue right around the edge and then just kind of tuck it right around the end. And then you'll have like a little wall hanging.
Perfect for the holidays.
So I also have some little like examples if you can't think of any shapes.
No, that's okay. No, you're good.
So I have one that's like fruit themed, and then these are like flowers and bugs and everything. So like I said, once you put them all together into a scene, that's when they sort of become what you want them to become. So don't be afraid of anything. My biggest tip is always hold your iron on for long enough, because I get impatient and I don't do it and then they fall off. All right, thank you guys so much.